It's officially recording now. I'd like to start with a few announcements. We would like to thank our sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, and Oncopeptides. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you our featured speaker, Georgia Anderson. Georgia Anderson is an emotional coach, Gottman-trained relationship educator, and board-certified massage therapist. She founded KnowHowMom.com in 2015 after decades of educating families. She coaches and teaches simple skills anyone can master for strong connections and personal flourishing. Georgia lives in Salt Lake City with her husband, Mark, and is the proud spoiler of 13 grandkids. She loves to kayak, ski, hike, and surf. As I mentioned, today's topic will be starting the year stress-free. Jenny Ahlstrom, founder of the Myeloma Crowd, recently published an article about how stress hormones can cause cancer regrowth, and it really got me thinking, how can we lower our stress levels? I, for one, definitely am interested in knowing how I can do that. So after hearing previous presentations of Georgia's, I knew she was the right speaker for this topic. I'm excited to participate in this interactive discussion with Georgia. We will be using the chat feature frequently during this meeting. On desktops, you can find it on the top right. If you click the icon that has a chat box in the white bar, you will be able to participate in the chat. I'm not exactly sure how you see it on the mobile, but hopefully it should be either at the bottom of your screen or at the top of your screen. Again, it's going to be that chat icon. If you have any trouble, feel free to let us know. But Georgia, I'd like to turn the time now over to you. Oh, you're muted, Georgia. So if you could unmute yourself. No, it's always tricky.
Thank you. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you so much. I have a special place in my heart for this organization and really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I think this might be a little bit different than the typical presentation you hear from a medical person. I hope that this today is very interactive, very experiential. I hope that you experience something today that will be helpful for you in your journey, that really brings you some peace. And I'm going to give you several things to try today to experience together. I hope you'll just take that opportunity to actually physically practice and write or chat or whatever we're doing at the moment. So I invite you to also make sure it's a really safe place. If anything, gets overwhelming or feels too much for you, please take the opportunity to take care of yourself. Get up, get a drink, walk around, stretch, whatever, take some deep breaths. Anything that you need to do that takes care of yourself, because that's what we're all about, right? I do a lot of coaching around leadership and self-leadership, and I think every single one of you is a leader in what you're experiencing right now, and you're finding your way and you're creating a path. So I honor that journey, and I hope you take care of yourselves while we're here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'll share my screen for a while, and then we'll come back and do a lot of practice and exercises. So bear with me while you're just looking at slides here. Okay. We're going to talk a lot today about self-awareness and how self-awareness and using it effectively can bring us peace through any kind of a challenging situation. Not that we're not going to have challenges. We're going to have challenges in life all the time, right? They're going to be part of our lives. It's how we deal with those situations and how hopefully we learn not to beat ourselves up that we're going to hopefully talk about today. So I'm going to be sharing, first of all, this beautiful artwork is by Caitlin Connolly, and I got permission from her to share these slides. I felt that her artwork represented so much of what I was talking about, and she was gracious enough to allow me to share them. So thank you to Caitlin Connolly for those. The single most important tool that we have in dealing with any kind of a difficult time for ourselves revolves around compassion, around simple kindness. This compassion not only for others when they're struggling, but for ourselves when we are struggling. So I want to define self-compassion first. We hear a lot about self-esteem. Self-esteem is important, and by its very nature, it can set us up for judgment on how we measure up in comparison to other people. That is not self-compassion. It's something different. Self-compassion is also different than numbing out or not feeling. It's more than a hot bath or an ice cream cone or whatever you do to kind of feel better at the moment. It's not about, it's about self-care, but it's something much deeper and more intrinsic than that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Self-compassion is more what I see in this beautiful painting. It's treating yourself like you would treat a really good friend. Anyone can learn self-compassion because we're already good at it in the way that we treat a friend or someone who is suffering. We just need to get permission to treat ourselves in the same way. It's learnable. It just takes practice. Culturally, we have a lot of norms that turn us against treating ourselves with kindness. We treat ourselves with kindness in the hot bath or the ice cream cone. Those things we're told are okay, but sometimes the emotional part of it is more of a struggle for us, and it's easy to beat ourselves up when we're going through something difficult. So I want to get to the origins of this, why, how this happens, and where we get to that place. I want you to think for a moment, and if you have a piece of paper or a pencil, or you're welcome to write it in the chat, although I don't know if we can see the chat while we're in this presentation, but write it there anyway if you don't have anywhere to write. Think of the ways you consider a baby to be fragile. What can they do? What can't they do? Just brainstorm it out for a minute. See if you can think of 5 ways they are fragile. Okay, I think that's pretty easy to think of those things because babies they need a lot from us, right? They're very dependent in order to survive. Babies are also resilient. For years before I was working more full-time as a coach, I worked as a birth doula at my local hospital as a volunteer. And I witnessed dozens and dozens of births. And I was in awe of how resilient these babies could be. Like, they had to endure going through the birth canal, the tremendous pressure of labor and delivery. Then they would be sent home with parents who maybe were first-time parents who didn't really know what they were doing. And they would not know exactly why the baby was crying or what the baby needed. And these babies are incredibly resilient. They may go home to a family of young children who's, pulling at their ears and poking their eyes. And so think a minute about the ways a baby or a young child is resilient. And just, brainstorm those for a second. Okay. So as human beings, we come as a mix of resilient and fragile. And it's easy for us to start self-judgment early on. We hear this sometimes, in the way a child is spoken to, or a way that we judge ourselves in comparison to other children. And we start this cycle of self-deprecation and beating up on ourselves. And so we're this mix of fragile and resilient, okay? So what we want to be able to do is to infuse ourselves with healthy doses of self-compassion so we can boost our immunity, as was mentioned earlier, become more resilient, make better choices about the action, become present in the moment when we're faced with a big decision about care, be able to be really in ourselves rather than thinking, I'm no good, I don't know how to take care of this, I don't know what to do, okay? And we've learned through research that the more self-compassion we give to ourselves, the more we're able to give to other people. So tough times can be valuable for all of us. They're valuable for babies and young children in learning to grow and become resilient against the trials that they're going to face. And the more of our whole selves we can bring to these situations, the better off we are. So Dr. Kristen Neff is a PhD who's studied resilience and self-compassion a lot. And she's come up with 3 components of self-compassion that I want you to be really aware of. And the first one we've already mentioned briefly, and that is to treat yourself as you would a friend. We're going to do a little exercise about this for a moment, but before we do that, think about what you do when a friend is struggling. Think about times you've been there for a friend. What kind of thoughts, what kind of gestures, what kind of even vocal tone you use in speaking with a friend who is struggling. What kind of interactions would you pursue with a friend who is struggling? Go ahead and write those down, either in the chat or on your paper. Okay. Next thing she says is that we need to invite perspective or realize that we're not alone, that knowing that other people, which is what's happening here right now, which is one reason I love this organization, knowing that we're not alone, that we are part of a common humanity who also suffers, who's also struggling in some way. There's something, we're very social creatures, and there's something about thinking we're alone in our suffering that's damaging to us. We are made to connect. We're built for connection. So inviting perspective that others are struggling is huge for self-compassion. Think of a time when you felt strengthened by someone who was going through something similar to you. Think of that specific incident. And take a moment just to write down a few sentences about how it was to have them supporting you, or maybe supporting each other through a difficult time. Okay. The third one might be the most challenging for a lot of people, and that is to be present with what's happening. I like to say a lot that emotions need motion. Emotions are meant to move through us, not to be stuck in us. So in order to move and in order to pass, usually emotions need to be named and accepted. We need to be able to verbalize what we're feeling and to hopefully make it more than a statement of happy, sad, angry, upset. We need to make those descriptions granular, which is like more descriptive. We need to be able to say what they are. And then that starts to give emotions motion. They start to move through us when we pay attention to them, and instead of stuffing them down in us, which causes that stress hormone to propagate. So being able to voice an emotion is a big deal, and to be able to notice it and pay attention to it. What's the difference between that and getting sucked into it? Well, there is a difference, and we're going to talk about how to deal with that. so that we don't just ruminate on the emotion. We don't just get sucked into it and think, poor me, poor me, poor me, but we actually notice, I'm feeling really unhappy right now. And then we're going to talk about what to do with that. Okay. Just a word about COVID. We're currently in a pandemic, and that's doubly challenging when you have an added challenge with it. So the whole world is kind of experiencing a global anticipatory grief. And I think with any diagnosis or challenge, there can be a sense of anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief means it's the unknown. Something bad is predicted, something bad might happen, I don't know what. And it's this grief about what might happen, which causes a lot of anxiety in us. I find that in myself, when I've had a difficult diagnosis, once I have the diagnosis and I can start to have tools and start to know what's happening, and then I start treatment or do whatever I need to do, I find I feel so much better as far as resilience and self-compassion when I'm actually taking action and able to take a step. But it's that anticipatory grief that really can be a challenge for me. And to be present, noticing that I am, even being present with the emotion, I'm worried. That's anticipatory grief, by the way. I'm worried is different than I have a diagnosis and then now I'm going to take action. So being present with the worry, noticing, oh, I'm in worry right now, that awareness gives me a choice. Awareness creates choice. And that's what being present allows us to do. It gives us choice. We're going to practice more about that. I know that's a lot of language that I hope makes sense to you. Commonly, what happens when a person is given a challenge or faces a challenge is we feel unsafe. And we go into, our body sends us into a fight, flight, freeze, and I add appease, disassociate with that. And we abandon the more resilient parts of ourselves and go into this safety net of fight, flight, freeze, disassociate, appease, these other behaviors. We can get stuck in those fearful parts because they have been safe for us at some point in our lives. So we've learned to use them well. Our body tells us to use them. And yet what we need is the ability, because we are human and we have the ability to reason, we have the ability to be aware of when we're going into that and make another choice. We don't have to react like an animal does all the time when it's being threatened. So I love this quote by Rilke, who says, "Let me not squander the hour of my pain." In other words, let me not get stuck in the difficulty I'm facing right now and just stuck in the fight or flight mode that we can get in. Don't let me squander it. What has pain taught me in the past? I could tell you stories for hours about, in my ripe old age, what I've learned from struggling, what I've learned from difficult times. And the way I've learned those things are by doing what that slide before said, by noticing, becoming aware, by knowing I'm not alone and inviting others and, to share and recognize that others are suffering as well. So I'm going to break here for questions. I'm going to stop sharing and just see what comments or questions you have at this point. And if you have none, we're going to go right into some practice.
I had a question, Georgia, with what you were saying about recognizing the feeling but not becoming the feeling. Because I feel like it's very easy for me to feel anxious, therefore I'm an anxious person kind of thing, and I don't want to define myself as that. Mm-hmm. So how can we recognize the feeling without becoming the feeling, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, I love that question. And I do what's called a subject-object move. So the feeling is real. Anxious is real. And it's what anxious is not me, but anxious is part of me. So that just leads me to an exercise. And I'm wondering if you'd all be willing to try an exercise with me. So this exercise, I was going to save this till later, but since you asked, we're going to do it. I'm going to ask each of you if you can find anxious in your body. I mean, there's a part of every one of us probably that has anxious somewhere. And I want to see, or I ask you to locate it. What part of your body tells you you're anxious? It might be a beating heart. It might be sweaty palms. It might be kind of a tingly sensation somewhere that you notice in your body, that kind of an out-of-body experience. Some people, their throat closes up. So I want you to locate anxious in your body. Next move is what we call the subject-object move, if you want to talk coaching speak. But I want you to bring a hand, which is part of your body, bring a hand to that place where you feel anxious, where you noticed anxious, and just let your hand be with that place. So your hand is the common humanity. Your hand is being with this part of your body that is anxious, that's demonstrating anxious. Okay, so they're there together. The next part of this exercise is to send from your brain a smile to that place that is anxious. I just want you to be aware of what happens with the anxious. May or may not dissipate or go away. Most people find that it lowers a little bit. It's still there, but it's a little bit less. So what is this doing? This little simple exercise developed by Dr. Kristen Neff is doing all those three things that we just talked about. It's recognizing how we feel. It's letting it know it's not alone. And it's sending it love and compassion. This exercise helps us realize that anxious is just one part of us. It's not all of us, and it's not how we are defined. It is something that's a natural result of the challenge we're facing. And it's there for our good, right? It's there for our good. The anxious part is saying, take action, do something. When we let it overwhelm us and be us, when we are anxious, when I am anxious, when we describe ourselves as anxious, are we allowing it to be just the engine, right? I want my anxious to be my engine, to motivate me to take action. How's that for an answer? That answer your question?
Okay. Yeah, totally. That was awesome.
All right. So I want to jump into a couple of experiences, and I hope you will join in with me. Your camera does not need to be on, but I will try to, demonstrate the best I can. And most of these are mental. They are mental, but they're physical. So you can do them with your camera off. You don't have to be seen to do it. So the first one is very simple. What I'm hoping to give you today is a whole bunch of tools to get to that place of awareness with your emotions. So first one is the 5-finger breathing. Okay, so we're going to just bring up a hand, and we're going to do this together, and you don't have to have your camera on. You're going to bring another finger to the bottom of your wrist. With every inhale, we're going to go up our finger. We're going to pause at the top. And we're going to exhale when we come down. Okay, so here we go. We're going to inhale, pause, exhale. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Now we're going to go back. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. What do you notice that's different than before you did that exercise? And you can write it in the chat or just notice it. The simple act of breathing, bringing your body oxygen, is huge. Somebody said, my mind feels more clear. That's just one of the many benefits of slowing your breathing and awareness in breathing. We say it when we're, take a breath. We say that kind of sarcastically to people when we're upset with them. If we can say that kindly to someone we're upset with or to ourselves, we are offering a gift. If we can place our hands on our chest and say, take a breath, or put our hand here, take a breath. Not only one breath. It literally does, yes, feels more calm, mind feels more open. All those, there are so many positive things that happen when we breathe. And we breathe fully and completely. Okay. Next, I want to do a centering, what I call a grounding practice with you. And this is something that I do at the beginning of every coaching session that I do with my clients. And I also do this for myself several times a day. As you practice this, you don't have to take as long doing it. Sometimes I spend longer, sometimes I don't. I actually have a practice of doing this at every red light I come to. So when I used to be like, oh, the light's red, darn it, I'm going to be late. Now it's like, oh, the light's red. I'm going to breathe and allow myself this gift of oxygen and centering. So it's totally changed my life as far as rushing in my car. But I love to link it to something in your life, something that you do a lot. I don't drive as much anymore because it's COVID, right? I do everything right here. But link it to something you do. I have clients who link it to wiping the counter. I have clients who link it to picking up their phone. I have clients, any habit or anything you do repeatedly through the day, you can link this to. So we're going to do the long version right now. And as you practice it, it's just like scales, like famous violinists and cellists, Yo-Yo Ma, he gets up every day still and does his scales. He's the most famous cellist in the world, but he still does his scales every day. And he learns something new. He tries to learn something new every time he does them. So that's what we're going to try to do as we center. It's not a one and done deal, right? It's something we practice. It's a practice. So I'm going to lead you through a centering exercise. This one's a little bit long, and as you practice it and create your own version of it, you'll have it available to you in any time of stress, tiny, like a red light, or big, like a diagnosis. You'll have it available to you. So the first thing we want to do is bring our attention to our feet. Your feet are always where you are. So your feet are a great place to start. We don't always pay attention to our feet and all the things that they do for us. So I love bringing my feet there. They're also what's connected to the earth and the ground. So I bring my attention to my feet, and this is also very good to do standing if you can, because you can really sense into your gravity, but it works anywhere. Bring your attention to your feet, and notice if more of your weight is on the toes or the balls of your feet or the heels. And see if you can allow the center of your feet to be where the weight settles, right in the center. And then allow your attention to come off of me and into your feet, and allow your attention to come up the length of your whole body. See if you can take one of those deep breaths that you practiced into the length of your whole body. From the top of your head to the tips of your toes. You can close your eyes, you can open your eyes, whatever works best for you to focus on that breath. Allow that length to have its full stature. Your system is designed to be upright, for your muscles to rest on the bones, and to be in this very dignified position of being upright. So breathe into that full length and give it attention. Breathe into your dignity. Next, bring your attention side to side. So your ears, your shoulders, your elbows, your sides of your legs, your hips, down the outsides of your legs. Notice the width, the space you take. And just as an experiment, try shrinking your width just the tiniest bit. Just imagine shrinking your width, making yourself smaller. And notice what it's like to try to breathe into that. Then experiment with taking your width a little wide, just a little bit. Making yourself bigger than you are. And see what you notice. Then bring yourself to a width that is comfortable, that is you. Breathe into that width. And notice as you breathe into your width how you belong in this space. The space of your body, the space of this group who cares about the same thing, who's here together, united in purpose. Notice the belonging in your space you're in physically right now. The belonging you have in your community, in the world as a whole. Breathe into that belonging. See what you notice. Next, bring your attention to your backside, the back of your head, the back of your neck, your shoulder blades, down your spine, your rear, the back of your legs, calves, heels. And as you're noticing the backside of you, I want you to imagine you also have a big, thick dinosaur tail attached to you. This dinosaur tail might help you balance, as it does a dinosaur. But in that tail lies all your past experience, your wisdom, your learning, your trials, your triumphs, your mistakes, your successes. your ancestry, your DNA, all the things that came behind you. Just sense that as part of you. It's part of a tale that goes out there and brings all this experience into your life. Now bring your awareness forward through your body, the muscles, bones, organs that are functioning together, and then forward to the front of your body. This is the part of us we're generally more familiar with because we look in the mirror. But just sense into the front of your body and that sense of forward, that sense of future. And that sense of purpose that you might be noticing as you sense into the front of you. And now I'm going to ask you to bring them together. So sensing into your length, that sense of dignity, breathing into that full length. Sense of width, belonging, breathing into belonging. And that sense of depth, your fundamental self-sufficiency, who you bring to this moment, and what you sense you want to be going forward. And when you're in this centered place, sometimes I like to rock, kind of like I'm the pendulum at the planetarium. So if I rock side to side and forward to back, and I kind of go, where does that pendulum want to rest? And I rock a little bit. And this is a quick exercise you can do even in a chair at a doctor's office, you know? Just rock a little, just a tiny bit. No one's going to notice. You're just going to rock till you get to that pendulum center. That's become a shortcut for me for centering now that I've practiced it for years over and over again. I can just do a quick pendulum and get to center. And really sense that I'm on that plumb line at the planetarium. That if I were to come up and poke you, you'd be pretty firm, you know? You wouldn't be rigid, but you'd be very grounded into the earth. It would be hard to knock you over. I just want you to notice what's available to you in that state. I want you to notice your peripheral vision. You may notice that it's very wide and there's a lot of availability. You're able to really notice what's happening around you. Or you may notice that you're very clear about what you want to see forward. But there usually is a change in vision if you really pay attention. I want you to notice what's different about your breathing. It may be slower, deeper. I want you to notice what's different about your muscle tone. You know, how do you feel like the blood is flowing through your muscles right now versus when you started that centering practice? I want you to notice what emotional range is available to you. So as when you're tense and held together and in that anxious state, what emotional range is available to you versus now when you're centered? What emotional range is available to you, and also what ideas are available to you? How easy is it in this state to think outside the box versus before? So I don't know if anyone would be willing to share their experience in doing this. Would that be okay? Can people come live? And
Yeah,
maybe share with you.
If you feel comfortable, let's turn on our cameras, and if anybody wants to share their experience, they can click the raise hand button that's at the bottom. It should be again, if you bring your mouse or your finger to the bottom, it should pop up a white bar, and there should be the raise hand feature. So if somebody wants to share their experience, I know that's kind of a vulnerable thing, but if you feel comfortable sharing your experience, if you can't find that raise hand feature and want to share, you can simply unmute your microphone as well and start talking. We'll give you a couple minutes if you do want to share.
And also you can write in the chat.
I think I just have a deeper sense of like being peaceful.
I think for me, it was like a powerful feeling of being enough. Like I was enough. My width, my length, my past, my future, like I am enough in this moment. And that was something I wasn't expecting when we started the practice. So that was powerful for me.
Thank you.
It made me realize how infrequently I stop and make just aware of my body. You know, I just go, and it's rare that I stop and tune in to my body as deeply as we did. You realize it would be good to do more often.
Okay. So anyone else?
I noticed Denise said in the chat that she's calmer, and I completely agree.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right. So this kind of centering is what gets us in a place to do the first step of Kristen Neff's, what her research proves is so effective. This first step of awareness. This kind of centering and awareness is what brings us. Typically, if I were doing this in a group class, I would ask you, after you did your centering, I would ask you to name 2 feelings you're feeling right now. And they don't have to be, you know, centering, you said you felt more calm, but what we really ultimately want to get at is literally, how are you feeling in this moment? It might be extremely anxious. It might be, you know, terrified. It might be a little sad. It might be excited. It might, you know, there any range. And the whole idea behind this exercise is not just to make you calm. It's actually to make you aware. So yes, it will make you calm. That's the first phase. But then what we want it to be able to do is to unearth what you're actually feeling so that you can give those emotions motion. Okay, so the idea is to calm the body, to create awareness instead of running through our day, doing our things, staying busy and unaware, to get us to a point where, oh, I'm aware, I'm actually feeling a lot of sorrow right now. Or I'm actually feeling really proud of myself right now. And to be, that's, you know, the whole idea behind this exercise is not just to calm you down, even though that is a benefit of it. The calming is a gateway to awareness. So I want to be really clear about that yes, calm is definitely a result of doing centering. It's not the end of it. It's the beginning of it. It's the gateway to noticing your emotions and giving them a voice. And when we give our emotions a voice and we give them awareness, we give them the opportunity to move. Emotions give us information. They're like information systems in our body. And when they give us information and we become aware of them and we pay attention to them, then we're freeing up choice. So if, for instance, I get centered and I'm feeling, you know, I'm going to go any direction here. I'm feeling proud of myself. I'm feeling really proud that I accomplished some exercise I was going to do that day or something I was going to do. Then I can take action. I can take action on that awareness. So what action I would want to take on that awareness is to savor that feeling of being proud of myself for a minute. I'm going to savor it, because when I savor that feeling of being proud of myself, I'm more likely to repeat my exercise tomorrow. I'm going to notice how I feel. Okay, let's say it's a negative emotion. Let's say that what I'm noticing is I'm extremely worried about my upcoming treatment. Okay, I'm noticing that this is really in my body in a big way, and I'm feeling all these signs of worry about my upcoming treatment. When I notice that and I'm going, yeah, this worry is big in here, it's a big part of me right now, then I'm able to say, what do I want to do about it? When I accept the worry and I name it, it gives me that freedom to choose something and to take action. And it also gives me freedom to be kind to myself, which is another thing we're going to talk about. So let's say that you've done your centering practice and you're aware of 2 feelings. And I hope everyone right now will think 2 feelings. And they don't have to just be calm. Remember, calm is the gateway, although it can be a feeling. Calm can be a gateway to help you notice what you're actually feeling emotionally right now. And think of 1 or 2 words that you're noticing, and you can write it down. If you want to share it in the chat, you don't have to. Just pay attention to those words. Now I want you to imagine that there's a drone above you, and it's got a camera on it. And it knows those 2 words, or that 1 feeling, those 1 or 2 feelings you're feeling right now. And it can see them. It's a camera that can see feelings. And this drone is going to raise up above you to your neighborhood. And it can now see all the feelings in your neighborhood. And it's only going to pinpoint the feelings that are very similar to your feelings, and those are going to light up on the camera. Then the drone's going to go another few, it's going to go like a mile up, and it's going to be able to see all the feelings in your state that are similar to your feelings. The camera's going to raise up again. The drone's going to light up other areas in your country where people are feeling similar feelings to you. And finally, it's going to go up into the atmosphere like a satellite, and it's going to light up all the feelings in the world of people who are feeling similar to you. None of us, even though we are unique, none of us are alone in the feelings and emotions we experience. There is someone, most likely in your very neighborhood, who has similar feelings. Maybe not exactly the same situation, but similar feelings, right? So noticing, allowing that drone to take us to a place where we realize we're not alone in what we're feeling. Well, let me ask you, what did you notice when you thought of the whole world and those lights lighting up? You can share or not share. I just want you to be aware of what happens in your body when you notice you're not alone. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's another exercise along this common humanity idea. And I know most of your cameras are not on, but I see some lovely pictures of people. And even if there's a letter of a name, there's a person behind that letter. So I want you to take an opportunity to find someone in this meeting, whether it's a letter and maybe a person, someone, one little square that you're drawn to. Okay, and I want you to just focus on that one square. And we're going to do an exercise called Just Like Me. So don't focus on me, okay? Focus on someone else in this meeting that you can find in a square. And if it's a letter, imagine that person behind a square or a letter. I want you to think about that person and that focus on that person only. And I want you to think about the following statements. Just like me, this person has known joy. Just like me, this person struggles sometimes. Just like me, this person gets tired. Just like me, this person has walked their own path. Just like me, this person has questions. Just like me, this person wants answers. Just like me, this person can feel lonely. Just like me, this person wants to be their best. I just want you to sit in that awareness for a moment. I know that can be awkward to look into someone's face, and some of you aren't looking into someone's face, but I challenge you to practice that exercise with someone you love. Or if you're in a waiting room and there's someone else in the waiting room and they don't even know you're doing it, take that challenge to do that exercise in a place where you're feeling alone. Okay? I'm trying to look at our time here. How is our time, Audrey?
We have about 6 minutes left.
Okay. All right. We're going to do a 2-minute writing exercise. And I want you to think of someone in your life who might be going through something difficult. It doesn't have to be a big thing because you only have 2 minutes. But I just want you to write them a little note, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes. We're just going to have silence here, and I want you to write them a note of what you want them to know from you. Okay, a note of support and encouragement. Ready? Write. About 10 more seconds. Okay. Now, just as a practice, and we're on the third one here, bringing kindness to yourself. I want you to read what you wrote as if it was written to you. Go ahead and read it. And notice how you feel. So I just want to recap what we're talking about when we're talking about self-compassion and allowing that calm to be a gateway to even more than calm, is to bring self-compassion to ourselves. First step is awareness. We get that awareness by being centered, grounded, and still. Okay, and you can use the things I've given you, the pendulum idea, the centering idea. There are so many more. There's tight and relaxed. There's so many more that we didn't talk about today. But getting up to a place of awareness is really so valuable for you, to slow down and notice, I am really struggling right now, or I'm really feeling great right now. Allowing that awareness to be an emotional awareness that allows your emotion movement, like a leaf on a river, so that it can go down the river and take you to action. Notice that you're not alone. Struggle and challenge is part of life. This is what it means to be human. We are built for struggle. We're wired for connection. All of this makes us more human. Sharing our struggles, knowing that we're not alone, being able to help a friend who's struggling and then have them help us, and then help ourselves when we're struggling. That's part of being human. And lastly, to bring kindness to yourself when you struggle. And that is that subject-object move, if you remember, of bringing a hand, noticing where it's happening in your body. Bringing a hand, it's not alone, being there with it. It doesn't define you, it's just part of you. And then sending it a smile. Treating yourself like you would treat a friend. I just want to thank you for letting me be here with you on your journey. I honor your journey. I want you to know how grateful I am for Jenny and Roz and everyone in this organization. I just feel there is so much power here, so much work to do that's good, that's together. So thank you so much for having me.
Georgia, thank you. That was
thank you, Georgia.
That was great. I learned so much. I felt so much. I've been teared up. I didn't want to tear up, but I'm recognizing my feeling. So thank you. And thank you to each of you for listening, participating, and supporting us as we continue to host these events. It means so much to us that you're here sharing the time. Just to close out, I have a couple things that I want to share. Our next Utah Myeloma Support Group meeting will be on March 3rd, 2021 at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. We're hoping to have a speaker from Huntsman come to discuss clinical trials. We will keep you updated and invite each of you to that event when the registration is open. You may be interested in our other events that we have upcoming in our myeloma community program. Tomorrow on the 11th of February at 5 p.m., we will be having our Myeloma Caregiver Chapter event. We will be discussing how to avoid caregiver burnout. We will be joined by Rosalind Height, Myeloma Coach Program Director, and Ann Bailey, a Myeloma Coach Caregiver with more than 17 years of experience. We will also be sharing expert opinions about how to prevent burnout. On Tuesday, February 16th at 11 a.m. Mountain is our Nutrition and Wellness Chapter event. It will be part 2 in a series hosted by Dr. Urvi Shah, Modifiable Risk Factors that Impact Myeloma. And she'll be discussing do's and don'ts of diets and supplements for myeloma patients. On Wednesday, February 17th at 1 p.m. Mountain, is our Connect with the Myeloma Crowd event. We will be discussing the creation of Health Tree University and looking for input on what free new classes we should include in our curriculum. On Thursday, February 18th at 11 a.m. Mountain will be our newly diagnosed myeloma patients chapter. We will be discussing why physicians are optimistic about newly diagnosed myeloma. Dr. Sarah Lee from UW Medical Center will be moderating the Q&A. The link to sign up for those events is listed on the slide. I will also include it, as well as some of the slides that were shared today, in the follow-up email we send, along with the recording 24 to 48 hours after the completion of this event. Please note that because of artist copyright and privacy, we will not be able to share all of the slides that Georgia shared with you today. Another big thank you to our sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, and Oncopeptides. And thank you again for sharing this virtual time with us and for your support of the myeloma community. It means so much to us, and we hope to see you next time. So thank you, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your day.